As this is Tauna. Today we have a bunch of videos to go through. We're going to go through the scene box, which is the video that I was meant to record yesterday, but you know, life happens. So we've got the scene box full reveal for the Black Sun Invasion. I'm going to go through each of the cards. I'm going to talk about what comes in the box and if I think it's worth it. There's only one new commander in this box. All other, you know, interesting cards, but only one actual, like, you know, legendary creature that you can run as your commander here. Before we do get into that, make sure you guys subscribe. We've got a bunch of videos covering a heap of stuff coming out today. So if you don't want to miss out on that, you know, make sure that you subscribe. So what is in the scene box? There are 6 scene cards only found within here or within the collector boosters. There's also going to be 6 art cards of those scene cards. Essentially, those scene cards will have all the rules text and everything like that on it, and the art cards don't. And then there's a display easel. I'm not a big fan of this display easels because of the fact that they kind of separate out the scene a little bit when, you know, they're designed to fit snugly right next to each other. And then finally, there's going to be 3 play boosters within it. So these are the cards. We'll go through them all individually, but it's showing like the Black Sun Invasion. This is where the essentially like a big eclipse is happening that's going to block out the sun, and therefore the Firebenders are going to not be able to use their, you know, firebending. So the forces of the, like, you know, the Aang gang go to invade, try and get rid of the Fire Lord and kind of, you know, restore peace to the world. All right, we've got Appa the Vigilant first up. He's got flying vigilance. He costs 7, right? So it's pretty expensive. And he has whenever him or another ally you control enters, creatures you control get +1/+1 flying and vigilance until end of turn. So it's kind of like that classic ally where, you know, if him or another ally enters, do something, which is good. You know, giving that flying and vigilance is good. But the real power of this comes from some of the newer cards that let you generate a bunch of the tokens, like ally creature tokens, in one turn. So you can get, like, you know, 3-4 creature ally tokens out in a turn. Boom. It's just a kind of repeatable huge buff to your squad. Personally, I think it's pretty good. Not necessarily as a commander, but in regards to like the 99, I think it's a good kind of card to have in an ally based deck. We got Katara's reversal. Now, I had a big argument with one of my friends yesterday about this because I think this card is really, really good. He doesn't think it's necessarily great, but I do. Like the fact that you can counter target spells or abilities, that's great. Up to 4 of them. So if someone's cast something and then also they get some triggers from those casts, you can counter those triggers plus them actually casting that thing. Then you also get to untap 4 target artifacts and or creatures. So you get to do a decent kind of untap. So it's kind of combining both those things that you can enjoy, as well as the fact that if you were using mana from artifacts or mana from creatures to kind of do this, it ends up being just almost free if you've got, like, you know, enough artifacts out there that you're using or creatures out there that you're using to fuel this, then you get to get it for free. So it's just like, you know, ups that storm count. Like if you've got sorcerer's class or something like that, then boom, you get to counter something, untap 4 things, and you get it for free, right? It's pretty decent. We've got the Fire Nation turret, which is kind of like a red version of like an Aetherflux Reservoir or Helix Pinnacle, right? So you're going to pump a whole bunch of mana into this, more like the Helix Pinnacle, but in regards to that. But then you only deal damage to one person, so that's like the Aetherflux. So you can add red to put a charge counter onto it. And obviously that red mana can be done at instant speed, so you're most likely going to use a whole bunch of your fire bending mana to do that, like, you know, or mana that's left over. It just gives you an essentially like a mana dump that you can put things into if you're not going to be able to spend it during combat. And then you can remove 50 of those charge counters to deal damage to any target. Keep in mind, there's also a whole bunch of ways to like double counters or, you know, make it so that more counters go onto things and stuff. Like if you're actually pumping 50 mana into this, that's unlikely to be good. But if you're only having to put, like, you know, 25 or 10 into it, it's going to be absolutely bonkers. Next, we've got the Swampbenders. This is a very interesting ability because you can actually use this card in a mono green deck. So it makes it so that all lands you control are swamps in addition to the other types. Only the lands you control, though. Only lands you control. But then Swampbenders' power and toughness are equal to the number of swamps on the battlefield. So it's not just your swamps, it's other people's swamps. So if you've got like an Urbog or something like that, that's great. And the great thing about this is, as I said, you know, you can use it in just a mono green deck if you just want a big green stompy creature that has land and power, power and toughness equal to at least your lands. Boom, you've got an option there. I don't think it's great, but it's decent, I think. It's not awful. It's not the worst kind of version of this. All right, we got Sokka's charge here. So this gives, during your turn, allies you control get double strike and lifelink. Very, very straightforward card. Just buffs up your allies by, a whole bunch. The great thing about this as well is that it is on a enchantment, which means it's harder to remove than if you had it on a creature or something like that. So, it's just paying 4 to give everything double strike and lifelink. That's pretty decent, I think, in an ally deck that's going to be getting potentially some pretty big allies out, right? All right, and then finally we've got Earthshape. So interesting, this is also a mono white card, but you get to Earthbend 3, so you're going to make a land into a 0/0 creature and put 3+1s onto it. Then each creature you control with power less than or equal to that land's power gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. You gain hexproof until end of turn. So if you've got a big land already, you can pump that up. Or if you wanted to kind of use it to pump up another land, and then you've got a whole bunch of smaller creatures, boom, that works really well there too. You also get hexproof until end of turn, which I think is very underrated, because anything that gives target opponent does this or something like that, then you can bypass that by making it so that that you're no longer a valid target, essentially. So I kind of like this. I think it's a great kind of instant to protect yourself or protect your land, your creatures and stuff like that. You most likely obviously need a land-based deck for it to be worthwhile more, or a little bit more earthbending in it or something. But overall, I think the card is okay. I think it's got uses in like the upcoming kind of Toph Metal Bender kind of deck. I think that's great in that kind of thing. But that's it. There's there's just these 6. I think that they're pretty decent. They're interesting. They're very, very straightforward, which I think is something that they've started doing more with these scene boxes, is making them more kind of straightforward, so that way newer players can pick them up and easily be able to tell what the cards do and stuff. But maybe that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. I'm a little bit kind of disappointed in the fact that there's not kind of more interesting cards, but I think that they're good for an entry level kind of cards. But let me know. Have a great day and goodbye.